The Fed15 podcast is presented by Serving Those Who Serve, a fiduciary, fee-based financial planning firm serving federal government employees and retirees all over the country. This podcast is presented for information and entertainment only and is not intended to be taken as financial advice. All listeners should consult their personal advisors before taking any action. The opinions expressed therein are not the opinion of Raymond James or Serving Those Who Serve.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 1 of the FedLife podcast, brought to you by Serving Those Who Serve. Each week, we'll do our level best to discuss the latest news and info that feds need to know, and I'm really going to work hard to keep it to 15 minutes or less. So whether you're a seasoned Fed or just starting in your career, Fed15, we got you. Grab your coffee, kick back, and we'll tell you what you need to know and just might have missed. I'm Dan Sipe. I'm actually the founder of Serving Those Who Serve, and I am joined by the brilliant Katelyn Murray, who is one of the key members of our team. I'm fond of saying that I'm never the smartest person in the room at Serving Those Who Serve. It's just whenever Katelyn's on, there's a much bigger gap between us. So welcome, Katelyn.
Thank you, Dan. Very kind, very kind. As Dan mentioned, I am one of the financial advisors on the Serving Those Who Serve team, out there working with feds every day on every facet, actually, of their financial lives. So we're here to just kind of give you the quick rundown, the quick and dirty, if you will, of what you might have missed in news that is relevant for federal government employees. So we'll start with the TSP. I think there actually might be we actually put out a really good article this week kind of summarizing a couple of important facts about the TSP. So we can kind of just kind of run down. So the TSP stands for Thrift Savings Plan. It actually got started.
Oh, come on, Katelyn. They all know that.
Come
on.
They may not. Hey, they might.
You're right. I keep forgetting. So
it might just be the savings plan. Could be that.
Everybody's not old like me. So
yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
Well, it was started in the 1980s. Dan, you remember the 1980s? Yes,
I do.
It was a good time. Some good music in that time.
Yes, Walking on Sunshine. That was the 80s.
So yeah, the TSP was TSP, Social Security, and FERS that were called the three-legged stool, right? And the concept was that with this new-ish thing called the FERS pension and TSP and Social Security, you could cobble together a retirement plan, basically. And the TSP actually started with only 3 core funds, not the 5 that we know of today. Dan, can you guess which 3 funds are OG funds in the TSP?
Ooh, okay. Number 1, G fund.
Yes.
Number 2, C fund.
Mm-hmm.
And number 3, S like Sam fund.
Oh, man, close but no cigar. It was G, C, and F, actually. F like Frank.
F like Frank.
F fund, yeah.
Well, it should have been S like Sam. Sorry. Yes. Y'all were wrong. If you had talked to me, it would have done that. So. Yep.
Nope. G,
like
F,
Frank.
and C were the 3 square meals of the TSP when it first got started in 87. Gotcha. I fund, which stands for international, and S fund, which stands for small cap equity. They were added in 2001. So.
Well, actually, fun fact, Katelyn.
Yeah.
I know the S fund is theoretically small cap equity, but it's actually pretty much the whole rest of the market.
Yep, that's true. And the I fund stands for international, but they really mean the UK, Europe. Which the UK and Europe are technically international, but they're maybe not as international as some of the more broadly diversified funds.
Australia, New Zealand, Japan. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So you're getting some international allocation, but really only to those developed countries. And as we know, those undeveloped international countries can also contribute heavily to the growth in your portfolio. So something to be aware of with iFund that we talk about with our feds a lot. So we've got our core 5 funds at this point, G, F, C, S, and I. Those of you who are listening some of you might be shouting out, but there's more than 5 funds in the TSP. I see more than 5 funds when I log in. There are life cycle funds that were added later. Life cycle funds, as they are known, are essentially just combinations of the existing 5 funds that are put together, kind of pre-built portfolios based on the year that you may be retiring. Life cycle funds are not necessarily bad things. I used to give this talk about the fundamentals of financial planning, and I talked about life cycle funds and target date funds, as they're known in the private sector. And folks were like, oh, I know you hate target date funds or life cycle funds, but I'm invested in such and such and such. And I was like, wait. I don't hate life cycle funds. I think they're a great place to start out. So if you are a new Fed, because we have all different types of federal employees who listen to our podcast, if you are a new Fed who's just kind of starting out in your career, you're just getting your TSP started, I think the most, you could throw it into a life cycle fund, get it started, get it up and running. But once you have a considerable balance, I think it makes sense to look at, at least consider getting a customized portfolio allocation there that's optimized around more than one factor, that one factor being the year that you might retire. There's a lot that kind of goes into retirement planning, and I think age is only one piece of the puzzle.
Sure.
So the next biggest update to the TSP was adding the Roth option. So that's
not a big one, Katelyn. That's a huge one. Sorry, massive. No disrespect. Massive.
Yes. True. So when the Roth option was added, Roth came about in the 90s, Dan? I don't know. I don't remember the exact year.
Meaning Roth IRAs in general?
Yep. Yeah, just the Roth concept. The concept of putting away after-tax dollars for retirement. So obviously, with the traditional TSP, you put money into the TSP, it comes out of your paycheck before taxes are levied against your pay. And then that money grows and grows and grows in the TSP. When you take it out in retirement, you're paying income tax on all distributions. The Roth is exactly opposite, basically. So you get your paycheck, you're taxed on the full amount, and then your contribution goes in after the taxes are levied. So the after-tax contributions go in. They grow for years and years and years. And then in retirement, when you pull that money out, there are no taxes owed because you've already sent it through that income tax loop. So adding Roth to the TSP was, as Dan said, it was massive. And today...
And Katelyn, it also created one of the biggest misconceptions that we see in our planning practice. Because, folks, we produce an incredible amount of content. We love doing it. We like having it there for you. But we're also boots on the ground, working with Feds every day. Number one misconception that I have been hearing for years: I can't do Roth TSP. I make too much money.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So, Katelyn, disabuse them of that notion.
Yes. So unlike Roth IRAs, which are limited to annual contributions of $6,500 a year if you're under 50, $7,500 a year if you're over 50, there is no income limit to contributing to the Roth TSP. It is a benefit of your TSP plan that you can contribute to Roth no matter what your income level is. Even if you can't make a contribution to a Roth IRA, you do always have the option of doing Roth in your TSP. Now you may be wondering, well, should I just switch everything over to Roth? Not quite that simple. Few things in financial planning are, but I would encourage you, if you've never looked at the Roth option, if you don't know very much about it, definitely look into that. It is a huge benefit of the TSP. So that is available.
And hit our site, swsurf.com.
Yes.
Put it in the search bar, Roth TSP. You're going to find a ton.
Yep.
Ed Zerndorf is writing all the time. Benefits Ben, the rest of our advisors. So plenty of free stuff there to help you get comfortable with the idea.
Absolutely. Yep. And we'll plug that blog again at the end of the episode if you missed it there. So
that means I plugged too early. Sorry, folks. I get excited.
Okay.
I get excited. I'm sorry.
I love it. I love the energy. So we've kind of given a brief overview of the TSP. Some of this you may have known, some of it you may not have. One thing I think, though, that a lot of people don't know about the TSP, and you can see Dan's eyebrows starting to perk up, right? TSP launched a very successful advertising campaign about being kind of the cheapest thing out there, the cheapest thing on the market. I think the tagline was the only one you'll ever need, the only investment account you'll ever need for retirement. And that has kind of become very, in talking with Feds, we talk to thousands of Feds every year. It has become kind of a pervasive way of thinking that the TSP is the cheapest retirement vehicle out there. And while it may have been true at the time that advertising campaign came out, it's certainly not true nowadays. What we have found is that the TSP, we've actually got a couple articles on the blog about this, on the Serving Those Who Serve blog. TSP expense ratios have been increasing for those 5 TSP funds. It used to be really cheap. It's gone up significantly since then to the tune of almost 138% in the past 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So certainly something to kind of be aware of there with regard to
and again,
TSP.
To be clear, we're not bashing, we're not defending here.
Mm-mm.
Okay, we're just sharing the information. And the one thing that I believe is the most important thing we can bring to the table, Katelyn, is just getting the information out there so everybody can make an informed decision. So
Absolutely.
Conventional wisdom doesn't always serve.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, definitely. I think the TSP is certainly a powerful vehicle. Many feds leverage it to build a really, really great retirement plan. I think you would agree with me, Dan, when I say I don't think it's the only one you'll ever need. What I do think it is a very important factor amongst many other factors and tools that you can use to build a solid financial plan and a solid retirement plan. So I love what you said, Dan. We're not disabusing TSP. We're not, arguing for it. That's the beauty of an independent advisor, is that we can really sort of sit in the middle and say, hey, here are the pros, here are the cons. But yeah, I would encourage folks.
The one thing that I will add, Katelyn, you briefly touched on the sort of the idea of the three-legged table or the three-legged stool, with, for example, first pension, TSP, and Social Security.
Mm-hmm.
We have maintained for decades here at Serving Those Who Serve that there must be a de facto fourth leg, and that is strategy.
Yeah.
So, you folks, you may not want an advisor, okay, and that's fine. You may not want a planner, and that's fine. You should have a plan. So that's the one thing I'd drop in there. So getting the most out of your TSP will require a plan and strategy.
Definitely. Couldn't agree more, Dan. Well, quite a lot of talk about the TSP, but there's something else kind of going on in the federal space this week. Did you want to kind of
are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Okay. On the off chance that some of my listeners from FedLife are over here. No, do you realize that I've gone multiple minutes without my trademark opener? Which
you
is,
have. Oh my goodness.
And I will begin, as I always do, by saying thank you for your service to the government, to the country, to me. You don't hear it enough. You'll always hear it here. So there, I got it in. That's why I was getting a little twitchy there. But this week, and I know I'm not supposed to put a date and a time on a podcast, but I'm always breaking that fourth wall, folks. It's Public Service Recognition Week. And we don't do that enough. Okay. So yes, for me, that always takes me to feds. Okay. But that's the teacher in your kid's school. Okay. That's the firefighter in your neighborhood. That's the police officer. So feds are served by public service people too. So this is just a great opportunity, a great reminder. We live in a great place. Not perfect, but great.
Mm-hmm. And
there's a whole heck of a lot of people that contribute every day to making it great. So be mindful of it. Get a moment to say thank you. Smile. Smile goes a long way. I don't do it enough, but smile and wave to, if you have police department or sheriff's department, smile and wave to them when you go by. Okay. Number one, you'll surprise them. Okay. But
in a good way, hopefully.
Remember this, folks, like we remember you, is what I'll say.
Absolutely.
We are never going to forget you, but let's remember all of them.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself, Dan. Well, we're almost at the end of our little bite-sized podcast. Like we mentioned earlier, we try to keep these episodes short and sweet. We know that our feds are busy. We know our listeners are busy. So we want to kind of basically give you a tiny bite-sized digestible piece of what's going on in the Fed space. I do want to mention, we do have a couple upcoming webinars. We've got a tax planning webinar with Ed Zerndorfer on May 16th, as well as a TSP planning webinar with Ed Zerndorfer as well on May 17th. If you've never attended one of our webinars, I highly, highly encourage you to. They are 100% free, and they are also hassle-free. So I would encourage you to check those out. We will put a QR code up on the screen if you are joining us on YouTube. We will also put a link in the podcast description if you are not, if you're joining us somewhere else. You can scan that QR code or go to that link and register online. The address is stwsseminars.com. You can always email us as well at info@stwserve.com. fed15.com. And I think that's all the time that we have for today.
Yes, Roth. Read about Roth.
Yes.
Remember, read about Roth. Did I put enough alliteration in that?
Read about Roth and check out those expense ratios as well. We'll be back next week to bring you all the latest updates you need to make.
Oh, we're doing this again? We're going to have a 2?
What do you mean?
We're going to do a second one? Awesome.
Yes, we are. Another episode? Okay? Yes.
So I did okay? Awesome.
You did okay. Yes, we're going to go back. We're going to be back next week.
When OG goes digital, I'm always ready to get the axe on this. So awesome.
Yes, we will absolutely be back next week. Dana and I will be back to bring you all the latest updates that you need to make informed decisions, rather, about your career and your financial well-being as a Fed. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast. You see how excited it makes Dan. If you subscribe, he will be just as excited. Subscribe on either our YouTube channel or Spotify so that you never miss an episode. And please, 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 most importantly, remember to share it with your friends and colleagues who are in the federal space.
Is this where I get to say, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing? Do I get to say that?
You can. You can say it. For more information, of course, about the topics covered in today's show and more, be sure to check out our blog at blog.stwserve.com. And you can also subscribe to our weekly newsletter, The Weekly Serving, to get all of the latest news for Feds delivered straight to your inbox every week. So, Dan, I think that's all the housekeeping that we have. Do you want to sign us out? You want to take us home?
If it's okay, Katelyn, I'll borrow from the FedLife podcast by saying, and above all, remember, it's your FedLife. Make it a great one because you deserve it. And thank a Fed today. Thank a fellow Fed. Thank another public service employee. And we will be back. Katelyn will let me know. I've been extended for at least one more. So I'm excited.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone, for listening to the Fed 15. We will see you next week.